Not Moving Out by Jon Rance. Read by Georgia Taylforth and Laurence Dobiesz.
To Charlotte and Jack.
Chapter 1. Joe. Freya and I agreed to meet at Pelicano Coffee Co. in the Lanes, which we had been to before during happier times, and it was one of our favourites. We could have held the meeting in the comfortable surroundings of home, but we thought a neutral venue, like the Paris Peace Conference after the First World War, was probably better. Paris seemed a little far, and so we decided on one of the best coffee spots in Brighton instead. We were meeting to discuss the terms of our separation, write a manifesto of a way forward, while sipping coffees and nibbling on pastries on a damp morning in late March. It was a thoroughly depressing occasion, but at least the coffee would be on point. "I see a table back there," said Freya tentatively, looking towards the rear of the coffee shop. "Right, I'll get the coffees. The usual?" "The usual," said Freya, with a nostalgic glance towards me that sated both of our needs for something meaningful in a morning that had, until that point, felt unwaveringly practical and devoid of the emotion it deserved. It was like watching one of the royal family lay a wreath on Remembrance Day. You knew there were emotions beneath the surface, but they were so focused on doing a good job and not falling over in front of the nation, it always came across as a bit robotic. I ordered Freya her usual oat milk latte and my flat white, plus a couple of pastries, and waited for those before I walked across and sat opposite my wife. It felt like a strange term, considering she hadn't felt like my wife or done anything a bit wifey for quite a while. But until all of this played out, she was still my other half. Better half? Probably. Freya Jane Wallace was 45 and still beautiful in the same way she had always been beautiful to me. Strawberry blonde hair, cornflower blue eyes, and pale skin she usually applied makeup to render her darker than she actually was, and to cover up the freckles she didn't like, but that I adored. On family holidays in years gone by, she would go the entire week makeup-free, and I would get to see that gorgeous face in its natural state, and it was always my favourite version of her. Today she had on a layer of makeup, and her hair was pulled into a high ponytail exposing her ears with the 2 small earrings in each. She was also wearing her tortoise shell-framed glasses, which I preferred over her contact lenses. In essence, Freya, the woman I was about to discuss breaking up from after almost 19 years of marriage, looked fucking gorgeous. And I knew that whatever happened going forward, it was highly unlikely I would find a partner I would find physically more attractive. The fact cast a shadow over the whole affair and had me questioning why we were even there. I also knew the answer to that very question, like the easiest question on University Challenge that literally everyone got right. Our marriage, that had once upon a time felt perfect, destined to last a lifetime and perhaps beyond if you believed in that sort of thing, had come to a grinding fucking halt. "Thanks for the coffee," said Freya, with a tentative, uneven smile. I hated the awkwardness and the stilted small talk. It was like an uncomfortable first date, but without any of the sexual tension. "Right, well, I suppose we should, crack on," I replied, stumbling over my words in an effort to get the ball rolling so we could get this over and done with as quickly as possible. "Right," said Freya, reaching down and grabbing a small handful of the Danish she had wanted, breaking it off and popping it delicately into her mouth. I noticed she had dark nail varnish, like the sort you might wear at a funeral or on Halloween, which reflected something of the mood, sad and scary. It was me who wanted this meeting, so I guess I should start. I took a sip of my flat white, and then I crossed my legs. "Joe, You and I are broken. Our marriage hasn't felt like a marriage for probably 18 months, if we're honest. It hasn't been that long, Freya. It has, Joe. It's been gradually getting worse and worse, and I can't take it anymore. It feels like we're just going through the motions, but we aren't happy, are we? I looked at Freya, and at the small crease between her eyes that always appeared when she asked a serious question, the way her forehead wrinkled and her eyes looked at me longingly. Not that sort of longing, because she was fucking right about that, but more with a need for me to get on board with the separation idea. No, I suppose we're not particularly happy, I replied. It's time we ripped the plaster off. Get it over with so we can both move on with our lives, or at least try something different, because just blindly staying together feels like it's hurting us more than helping us. And we have to think about Dolly. I can't keep living in limbo, Joe. It's fucking killing me. Something has to change. Talk about a dagger to the heart. She wasn't pulling any punches, although I couldn't disagree with her. We both knew why we were there. We had seen the trailer multiple times, read the reviews, and knew exactly what was going to happen when we sat down with our popcorn. Understood. You agree we need to officially separate? The words, although expected, said out loud felt like a swift punch to the gut. Almost 19 years of marriage, and it all came down to 2 fucking words. And they weren't, I do. I mean, yes, I suppose. I'm just not sure how we officially separate. What's the protocol? It means we have to tell people. Dolly first, obviously, but then family and friends. So saying it out loud makes it official. Perhaps something in the newspaper too? The Telegraph has a lovely announcements section, I said, realizing I was being a facetious knob. But the whole fucking thing was making me feel like a bit of a prick. It was easier for me to resort to childish banter than actually dealing with it like a proper grown-up. The truth was, I hated that my marriage was dead, that I had to somehow move on, make new arrangements, and I had to tell people about it. It all sounded like a bunch of work I didn't want to do, and I already had enough work with actual work, and now I was adding to it by officially separating from my wife. I had a sudden pang of nostalgia for days gone by when couples stuck together through thick or thin, no matter how thin it got. You married for life, whether you were happy about it or not. Because there wasn't another fucking choice. You signed the contract and it definitely said, till death do you part. So from a legal standpoint, there was no getting out of it until you drew your last breath. What was so wrong with that? I suppose saying it out loud does make it official, said Freya coolly. She wasn't falling for my usual prickly self when it came to discussing us or anything vaguely serious or important. She also knew sarcasm and humour were my first line of defence. So we tell Dolly, and then what? That's what today is about, Joe. It's about sorting out the practical stuff. Like where we are going to live, what our day-to-day lives will look like, finances, and how we deal with other things like potentially dating going forward. Whoa, what? Dating? I asked incredulously, shocked how she had just casually dropped that in there, like tossing a grenade into a library and wondering how long until anyone noticed. Fuck, what's that small metal object that looks suspiciously like a grenade doing in the reference section? What do you mean, dating? I mean that eventually we're going to date other people, and it's something we need to discuss, said Freya casually. She had obviously already thought about this. Perhaps she had a date in mind and was already dating someone else. And before you say anything, no, I'm not dating anyone, Joe, and I don't have any intentions of dating anyone soon. But eventually it might happen. Eventually, yes, I suppose it might. But more pressing, Joe, is our living situation and money. You know we can't afford for either of us to move out, and I love our house. I don't want to end up living in a shit one-bed flat just because our marriage doesn't...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?